Child Network Worldwide. We have today who is an author, an entrepreneur, and does a lot of social commentary. Now, Tsotsoo, the first, the divisional queen mother of James there. Now, Betty, you were on the point when I went to the doctor to look at what the physiological and psychological effect it could have. Some may say this is a gory situation we take our sisters, our wives, and our girlfriends, and our children through.
It's not necessary. It has no health benefits at all. It's actually very damaging psychologically because you can actually think of your small finger. Somebody just comes to cut it off. It means you remain with how many fingers? 4. So we can say there are some women who grow up operating on half the capacity of their bodies sexually. By the time they get married again, the sexual drive and also, just the birth, everything about you was actually disturbed at a much earlier stage. So you grow the fear. A knife is a dangerous weapon.
Actually, you're a man. I don't know whether you're feeling what I'm feeling now, but when you look at the practice like that, you look at pictures of that, you look at videos of that, what goes through your mind?
Just that people need to understand the dangers. Part of the problem is that people who are pushing this time-worn practice, they don't understand how deeply dangerous it is and how deeply destructive it is to the sexuality of a woman. And anytime I see it happen, it just reminds me of how much work we have to do to educate people on just how much long-term damage they're doing to a woman's mind and the woman's body.
Is it that prevalent in Nigeria as in other countries?
Well, thankfully, the efforts of both local CSOs, local NGOs, international funders, and the media that is resolute against it, it's not as prevalent. I mean, there's at least up to a 50% reduction in reported cases. So there is considerable progress being made. Most of it is a process of cultural orientation. I'm trying to let people understand that culture is only as useful as it adds value to society. The point at which it destroys more than it builds, it becomes useless and evolve in society.
Well, now, you are a traditional ruler. The situation where the culture of the people should not be frowned upon. The situation where we need to make sure that we keep the society alive by keeping to the dynamics of the culture. Why have we kept this up to this point?
Thank you. I haven't. I don't think it has anything to do with culture per se. I think it has been touted as a cultural practice, but as Chidi said, culture has to be dynamic. I cannot in all conscience sit here and say it's something that I would condone. I will give you a very brief analogy. Women are being mutilated to prevent them enjoying the sexual act. I always say, let's take men are more promiscuous than women. It's a fact. So why don't we go...
By which study?
Because, it's a fact. I'm not going to go into studies, but we all know men are naturally more promiscuous. But if we go about chopping off every men's genitalia as a result to prevent them being promiscuous, where would we be? Therefore, the argument that this is a cultural practice that prevents women from being promiscuous, keeps them virgins, to me doesn't make any sense. So I hesitate to call it a cultural practice, and I definitely condemn it, unless we're going to even...
But the argument might be that in those days, you mentioned time one practice, but in those days, we needed to keep the women clean, safe, whole, for their husbands and all those things. Why haven't that cultural thing evolved and changed, and then the mentality of the people changed up to this point in time? Because these people are still doing it. And by the UNICEF report, over 125 million.
Yes, it has to change. We used to have tribal marking. Now it's been phased out. There used to be in some cultures that I won't mention a headhunting when a king dies to get as many heads as possible and bury him with it. But in some cultures, virgins were sacrificed, and in some cultures, young children, mainly boys, were buried alive when a king died. And therefore, if we're going to look at these things that we have abolished, we've realized that they are not something that benefits society in any way. And if we do abolish them, they do no damage to society, then we should be looking at eliminating it. I happen to think that the women who perform these acts actually are doing it because they're being gently prodded somewhere by the men. And therefore, as we're looking at this issue, perhaps the education has to start with the men in these areas.
Well, Betty, are the men pushing women to do that? In your interruption in the campaign against this?
Yeah, I just want to put something quickly into perspective.
Yeah.
There is a sex menu in Africa. When you are looking at Southern Africa, they actually say women should pull them out.
Okay.
That's the woman they want. And then when you go to West Africa, they should cut them out. So, African men, where are you? Cutting or pulling? You know, because for everything you do, it's justified. It's supposed to be for the men who is going to marry. It's about, look at the whole marriage institution. And if you don't have it, you're isolated, you're rejected, you're labeled, you're stigmatized. So people try to avoid such persecutions by their own. So in order to just fulfill whatever sex menus these traditions make for us, it's just for you to be part of the bandwagon. Pull yourself or cut yourself. So we are saying, now we have proved the men wrong. To say, those you said they pulled, in Southern Africa, they are clean.
Okay.
They are the good women. Those you pulled are the ones you are divorcing. So what's here?
So the thing is being pushed on men. Simply, we're saying that we need to preserve the women for marriage later on in life. Would you push for something to preserve any woman for yourself? Well, I'm looking at you as a man who will talk for men anyway.
I think it's irrelevant really whether it's a men that are pushing it or not. It's possible that women think that they are doing good for the young girls that are being born. It's a condemnable practice, whatever way. Even if it's women, even if it's legalized, even if it's in the religions, it is condemnable because it does harm and no good.
Well, we're talking about the psychological effect it has on victims, and I have one very brave victim of this gory act. Kurima Ibrahim is with us on the line from Ghana. Kurima, hello, and thank you for joining us.
Hello, good evening.
How are you doing?
Hello.
How are you doing, Kurima? Now tell us briefly.
Fine, what about you?
We are doing fine, thank God for the small mercies. What did you go through? Tell us a bit of your experience.
Yeah. I am a victim of female genital mutilation. I was being cut a week after I was being born. And after this, I passed through a lot of pain. So I'm passing through it, even though I'm not married. It has affected my relationship and love. But the labor side has not passed through. From what my sisters, aunties have passed through, I learned it's very difficult when you have to forgive them because of this cutting.
Now, let me find a bit more into your personal. Are you in a relationship now?
Am I?
Are you in a relationship now?
No, I'm not. Because I've gone through, I've been in about 4 different types of relationships. And the reason they all give to me is that I'm like a wood. When they have intercourse with me, I'm like a wood. I don't have anything. There's nothing. It's pain doing a station where you have sex. There is pain that if you just take time, you even say that you didn't have sex again. And as a FGM victim, you can try apart. And I don't think I should be like chasing guys before I can meet the right person. That's why I decided not to go in for any other guy, but rather to fight and correct this mistake.
Well, Kurima, I understand there is a hospital in Burkina Faso, for instance, that takes you to surgery to reverse the situation. Why don't you go for that? At least to have your normal life back, to some extent.
Yeah.
Hello, Kurima, are you there?
Because no one came out to tell us that yes, they are 100% sure that they restore your clitoris. But rather what I heard was that they can restore it. And even with the conditions that they gave, they said that when they restore it and immediately you get pregnant, they have to take you down to another hospital for them to take care of you before you give birth. And looking at my people, look at where they are. Sometimes it's hardly to get a doctor to speak to you.
Okay.
To whoever that is going in for it, there is a risk. That is why I said I wouldn't go in for it again. I wouldn't let anybody go in for it. Sorry. So somebody comes out to tell us that this is the side effect. This is the in everything. I think there is side effect.
Right.
I'm waiting for somebody to come out to say that there is side effect,
So,
but there's no side effect.
Grima, let me find out
I'm
from
not
you.
doing it for my.
Let me find out from you. Are you undertaking any campaign against this act?
Sorry.
Are you undertaking any campaign against female genital mutilation in Ghana, for instance?
Yes, I started about 2 years ago when I was in my hometown, Upper West region. But before I started, I was being warned that if I want to live long, I better shut up. So I decided not to talk about it again. So last year I went to Accra to talk about it properly. And now, just this February, just this year,
Yeah.
I was able to do something more campaigning against it. Even so many people didn't know what FGM was all about.
That's right, yeah.
I was able to come out to talk boldly and all that. It mattered the strength and all that I went through. Even so now that I'm speaking, I can't walk again. I've been attacked spiritually. I can't walk.
Well, we empathize with you and sorry and more grace to you, August. Thank you for your bravery and we'll support you in any way, shape or form. Thank you for your contribution to our program, Kurima. Well, she's gonna... viewers, your contributions are also welcome. Tell us what you feel. Tell us what should be done and help us to move the campaign forward. We'll be back after this.
Focus on Ghana is brought to you in association with MoneyGram.
We have Muzvare Makoni, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Girl Right Network Worldwide. I have Chide Jidiongo, an entrepreneur and also an author and a social commentator. Natujo Soyo is the Divisional Queen Mother of Jamestown, who is also really not too happy about that. But now let me come back to the tradition that we're looking at. The rulers, you are the custodians of the law and all the other traditions of the land. Why is it that if your good self does not support this, we have not legislated against it or even banned it outright?
I think it's about awareness. It's about, as you said, the traditional will for something to be done. I don't believe that this is an issue that has been spoken about enough, especially in Ghana. And perhaps it's the time we have to actively, as traditional leaders, start talking about it so people are aware that this issue is serious enough to be given consideration. Perhaps we, people like me and others, have to go out there and advocate that banishes it outright, because I refuse to have it again touted as either culture or tradition. Tradition has to be upheld. Who we are as a people has to be upheld. I often say to people that if you accuse me of being uncouth because I don't eat you, there's no problem with you. I'm quite happy to have my food with my fingers, and if you say, why aren't you using a fork, I have a problem, because that's who I am. But cutting a human being has no, and this particular practice really has no practical or no practical basis for it. You know, there's no reason why it should be done, and therefore, when you look at it in terms of tradition, it bothers me. It's not traditional.
Well, today, why haven't we had the will politically, socially, economically, to banish that?
First, it's difficult to change people's mindsets, and the people who grew up in society always are averse to standing against the majority. Secondly, there's the false equivalency between equating male circumcision to female genital mutilation, and so people in their minds justify the one by the other, but it's like comparing fufu with Yorkshire pudding, because the one doesn't have any damage on the boy in any way or form, short term or long term. It's simply a matter of taste. The other has long term, irrevocable, as we've seen from the woman who spoke, because she's not a victim. She's able to speak powerfully about it, so I'm very inspired by her.
Yeah.
That false equivalence delegitimizes the fact that this is actually a dangerous practice that desensitizes the woman, desexualizes her, and makes her inferior to the men. And you know, it's a problem with the historically disadvantaged in Africa, and especially if you are a child, you are female. I mean, you can draw parallels with, you know, the girls that are missing in Nigeria. You know, there is the reluctance to stand up immediately when the girl child is at risk, because it is assumed that the girl child should live a life of quiet submission. You know, to what men say, to what society says, to what the elders say. So that is, those three reasons are the reasons why it's not taken as seriously. But those three reasons are the reasons why it should be taken seriously, because the society is only as good as how it treats its most disadvantaged.
Now, Jay is talking about difficulty to adapt to change. But look at just what social media is doing now. Look at what technology is doing now. At the tip of your fingers, somebody adapts to it. Why is it that character change, especially when it comes to sex practices, is difficult to change?
I want to ascend to say that there are some communities who benefit from it. For instance, I went to Tanzania. If the clitoris are cut, they are wanted by fishermen. They believe that if they put that on the hook, it catches more fish. So there is also a belief, a deep-seated belief, that genital organs of girls, like virgin blood, like clitoris, labia, can make you rich. So those things may not come out to all of us, the enlightened world, but these are deep-seated, silent myths that go around in communities. But I also want to say ignorance is the most dangerous weapon in the world. Not knowing what these body parts function. We know the hand, we know the leg, it makes you walk. But I don't think we have explored what our genital organs are all about. There are still mysteries. Even if you ask women to say, what do your genital organs look like, even though you use them daily in a marriage, some women don't even know. They are shy even to talk about it. But I'm also saying, whatever offense you do to the hand, you also do to the genital organ. But also, your home is not run by UNICEF, by Girl Child Network. Your home is run by responsible parents. I don't have girl children. I'm a mother of 3 boys. But not a day will I hear my sons talking about such issues. I want them to treat their women with their body parts as they were created. That's rule number 1 from mother. So we are also mothers in our own rights. We must protect even our daughters-in-law who are going to come to us. They should come with their bodily parts all in whatever order they were created with. Ours is to embrace what is there. It's not to recreate.
Let me drop in this question, and any of you could pick it up. Sexual education in our societies, especially African societies, is looked at as a myth. And it's an abomination to be talking about what the sexual parts are, and we give them figurative names. Could that be a reason why we are not able to get to the bottom of this and talk about the dangers that FGM has?
I think there's an element in what you've said that makes people reluctant to talk about sex. We are brought up as a society, and as girls, I'm one of those people who was brought up to not really deal with the issue of sex openly. I think there's an advantage to that and a disadvantage if not taught properly. Because I don't believe that young children who really have not grown up enough to know the concept of sex should be taught certain things. I really totally disagree. However, if you must deal with the issue, you have to find a sensitive but sensible way of dealing with it. If you call, I mean, we have euphemisms for things. If you are going to refer to the woman's clitoris and you want to use a certain way to describe it, make them know that's exactly what you mean. Right. You know, do not, we have created a society where sex is taboo, full stop. And I think that's where we have to start from, the education. And also, I want to comment on something Muzvare said.
If you could just hold on your breath with that. Let me go to the northern part of Ghana. And I would want to find an answer to one very persistent question. Why is it being done even up to this point? Our reporter, Kobna Nto, is in Tamale now. Kobna, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Well, Kobna, this practice of mutilating the genitals of females, it persists in the north. Do you know why they still continue to do that?
Yes, the more reason why they still do this kind of practice is that from my research, they told me that in the olden days when the men they were going for the all, because they will leave the ladies in the house, so they have to just do this to them so that they will not feel for having sex with any other man. That's more the reason why. And now they have adapted it as their culture to the extent that if you're a lady and you don't allow yourself for them to do that to you, then just in the community which you are, instead for them to give you the due respect, they will not even respect you as a lady. And when it's time for you to maybe go to the riverside to fetch water, the moment you get there and they have not done it to you, or they have not circumcised you as a lady, everybody at the street side will just leave the place for you alone. And it feels they will treat you as if you are an outcast, and because of that, it forced a lot of ladies to just allow themselves.
So how are the victims coping? Those who have not done it and being looked down upon, how are they coping? And those who have gone through that, what's it feel like?
Yes, Mr. Kweku, yes. The community in which we have no respect, and even when the ladies they gather and you are to go and talk to them, none of them will talk to you, so they will treat you as if you are an outcast. And because of that, it forced the ladies to allow themselves to be treated in that way.
Well, it's a bit sad, but so it means that a lot of the ladies in the northern part of Ghana are taking themselves through that for social recognition. Is that what it is?
Especially those communities, they do practice this kind of culture or this kind of this kind of culture. And after everything, now I talked to some of the ladies as well, and they were saying that at the moment, even when they meet men or when they are having an affair with a man, they don't even feel it because they will be just there to the extent that everything will be done by the man alone. So because of that, we are feeling it's not all that as when they have the critical.
Well, thank you very much, Governor, for that update. We will be taking another quick break. When we come, we'll get your reaction on the thing that Princess said. But viewers, are we our own enemies, or we would have to put our shoulders to a wheel to fight this together? We'll be back.
Focus on Ghana is brought to you in association with MoneyGram.
Female genital mutilation, a very gory situation, a phenomenon that personally I think should be abolished and banished in society. In any case, we would have to continue with the education. Princess Chide now are helping me discuss that. Viewers, your contributions are also very much welcome. I know you want to get on the phones and tell us your experiences and all that. We are ready for you. Now, just before we went away, we wanted a quick reaction before coming with how we can get this thing out of the society. I wish we were able to do that here right now.
I was just going to react to what Muzvare said about the benefits to how people perceive female genitalia as a benefit. And she mentioned again that the men who go fishing use these cut pieces for bait because they believe it would enhance the catch. I go back to my assertion earlier that perhaps the education has to start with the men, because we've heard a lot of things and it all comes back to what the man wants. So lack of sexual gratification for a woman is to prevent her from being promiscuous, to keep her as a virgin, so that when she gets married, she, the husband enjoys and she doesn't.
By then the feeling is home.
Exactly. And the lady said something online that I picked up on very quickly. She said, I moved from partner to partner. So isn't it then generating an enlightened group of young women